welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And I want to jump right into our program today. I'll give you all the particulars later about where we are and when we are and how you can help and all that good stuff. But right now, we are going to jump into an interview I have been looking forward to for quite some time. And it has to do with, well, actually it has more. It has to do with more than just music. It's the unparalleled voice of feminine healing and sensual enlivenment individual, person, woman, Peruquois, and she is with us here on the program. And folks, I'm excited for two reasons. Number one, because of the subject matter. Number two, because of where she is as she's talking to us all the way from Moscow in Russia. And thank you so much for, I don't know whether it's staying up real late or getting up real early to join us here on the program. Thank you so much.
Richard, it's a pleasure. And no, it's not super late. It's actually around about 6:30 at night here. So
not
we're
bad.
on a nice balance between each other.
Yeah, that's not bad. I've done interviews with folks in Australia and in India. I still am perplexed by how it is that in India, this particular area, their time zone isn't an hour off or 5 or 10 or 15. It's a half hour. It's like, I don't know how we do that. But anyway, it's a pleasure to have you to talk about not only your music and what you provide, the healing work that you provide, but also to continue the conversation that we have been having on this program over, well, we've been doing this program specifically. Now we're 15 plus years. I've been interviewing for over 40. I grew up in a household with 4 sisters, a mother, 1 father, and 1 brother. So my brother and father and I, we were in the minority, but we were never left out. We have, I guess, could I call it a movement that's going on around the world where the feminine energy is really, I don't want to say exploding, but it is emerging as, and I'm going to put it this way, as a force to be reckoned with by the masculine energy, by the patriarchies that are around the world. How does what you bring to the table, our smorgasbord table, how does what you bring help to influence, help to encourage and support and inspire not only women, but even men like myself who, in addition to obviously my great respect and admiration for women and the feminine energy and what they bring to the table as far as their nurturing and so forth, but also to help bring about the balance. You know, the feminine energy is not about taking control over the male energy or masculine energy and doing away with the patriarchy for a matriarchy. You're looking for balance. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds as though you've touched this subject very deeply, and that's a great pleasure to speak with, because then I understand that we're not talking about overlaying, as you say, or controlling the situation on the planet. This feminine energy is extremely important because it's the very essence of life on our planet. It's when feminine energy is flowing, life is more spontaneous. You know, it's a little bit chaotic, like unpredictable, a lot less logical. And there's a nectar to it, a sweetness to it, a beauty to it, you know. And if feminine energy was not expressed on the planet, then the planet, well, obviously it would die. For me and my realization, both as a woman and as a musician, I realized a long time ago when I was 23 years old that our mother planet is a feminine consciousness, not a woman, but a feminine consciousness. And she, being that incredibly powerful, creative life force, drinks from that masculine principle, you know, from the sun. She just drinks it and then expresses in millions and millions and millions of forms. And I would say that woman's role on the planet is to really, she's the one that brings forth the body. You know, she's the one that makes it. She's the one that nourishes it, nurtures it, worries about it, cares for it. Not that man doesn't, because man has feminine energy too. But she's the one that's constantly in that tending of home, of children, of life. And without this juice and a little bit of chaos and unstructuredness that feminine energy brings, you know, life is very, very dull. And we can see it, for example, in the corporate world, right, where it's very structured, logical. You know, everything is about progress. And we see this very dominating kind of masculine energy, which is drive, push, exponential growth, and more. Whereas feminine energy says, I want to nurture what I have. It's about sustainability, about being able to have enough for my children, about being able to have enough for my home, about having enough to be able to create what I love in the world. So for me, fundamentally, the feminine energy that flows through woman is absolutely vital to making life sweet and beautiful, really. Without that beauty, without that nectar of sweetness, life is very, very dull. It's predictable. And of course, it's highly consumptive, which is what we see on a mass level on the planet, is massive consumption of the resource, the feminine resource, because of this projectile kind of masculine drive of more, you know? So for me, what feminine energy is, brings that balance, that care, that, that beauty to the world. And that's certainly an aspect of all of my creative journey as both a feminine teacher, because I work with women from 63 countries around the world over the last 28 years. And as a musician, I've been composing since maybe 30 years. And what I've created is a whole world of very feminine music. What does that mean, feminine music? It means that the rhythms of the music are very liquid, you know. They're like, if we think about masculine music, it's doof, 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 doom, 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 doom. You know, it's like doom, kak, doom, kak. The rhythms are very square, right? But feminine rhythm is doom, da, kak, doom, chi, 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 ka, da, da, ka, da, ka, da, ka. It's much more fluid and liquid. And the themes that I bring through the music, they're very conscious, they're incredibly nurturing to wake up both men and women. So I make music to make love to, consciously, very tantric music. I make music for women to dance to. I make music for women to birth their babies to. And then I make music to merge the world of both waking up consciousness, not just through consuming music, but actually by doing internal practice. So I create a lot of practices for meditation, for emotional cleansing, for all those challenges that the feminine energy brings, which is, you know, that chaos, that emotional nature that we have, that cyclical rhythm that we have in our body that makes it very confusing for women. So I've created a whole world of both practices to restore this feminine energy in her body. And what do I mean by that? Well, woman has started to doubt the truth of that feminine energy. And that has put inside of her a great amount of doubt. She doesn't love her body. She's critical. She's mean to herself. She's puts herself down all the time. And many, many women subconsciously are trying to rise to where men are, because men don't live in that same cyclical nature, which makes us a lot more vulnerable, when we're menstruating, when we're going through childbirth, when we're going through those immense hormonal changes we go through every month. Part of my work is to say, actually, that is totally natural. Now let's look at how it works consciously in your body. And now look at transforming this feeling of, it's like a virus, a global virus that's gotten into a woman's body. And that is that she's not enough. And that what makes her a woman actually makes her somehow almost like wrong, or something she needs to fix all the time, or better all the time, through products, through, I always say that if the world economy would crash if women stop consuming, because we're about 70% of the consumers of goods on the planet, because we've been convinced that we need so much stuff to make ourselves okay, or better, or more beautiful, or less aging, and all those things, So a lot of my work is marrying together the art of practice and the art of music. So I make a lot of soundtracks, and these soundtracks have a very healing quality to them. So I went from being the musical composer, which my roots are in jazz. Actually, I'm a conservatory and trained jazz singer. But as my life progressed, I found this enormous passion and search for, how does the voice actually heal? How does it rebalance us? How does it open us? How does it restore the connection to the Mother Earth through our body? How does it help us fall in love with our body, with the source, with that feminine energy? And of course, how do we become so truly woman that it really lights our men up? They get to enjoy it, and are nourished by it. So that's a lot of what I've been working on in the last 30 years.
Well, I will tell you that I must have been majorly influenced by the feminine energy in the household, because I lean more in the direction of that fluidity, of that cyclical aspect. First of all, nothing's permanent, but there are cycles, and it goes around and around. It spirals. It's not just a circle. It actually spirals, and it can spiral up. It can spiral down.
Absolutely.
What have you. And so obviously there's a connection that I have in that respect, and I'm actually quite grateful for that, because I am thought of amongst some of my male acquaintances as rather naive and idealistic when talking about trying to solve some of the deal with some of the challenges that we face, both as individuals, community, and as a planet. And it's like I would rather be on that side of a naivete, if you will, or idealism, because it is, to me, correct me if I'm wrong here, that this comes more from the feminine energy, that I I watch how both in movies and television, but also even in the news, how walls are put up, and the word that keeps coming into my mind is the word revenge. You know, that we've got to get even. You know, that there's always this grappling. You know, and I just can't do that. I mean, I've had people say, "Oh, you should never have anything to do with that person because they did this to you and they did this wrong." And I'm sitting here going, "I'm not a victim here."
Exactly. I just recently released a song exactly about this particular theme. You know, it says, I am not a victim of my life. Woo. I am not a victim of my past. I can't find my pitch here. I am not a victim of my world, and I will suffer no more. It's recognizing that when you step in to this balance, because that's really what you're talking about. You're looking at more of a balance in
Mhm.
yourself, both as man, masculine, feminine principle. But when you start to look at the world through more balance, you understand you're not trying to overthrow anything,
Mm-mm.
but you're trying to embody it.
Right.
And of course, naturally, Richard, I'm sure you've drawn a lot of interesting people to you because you hold that position. Um, and like always, when we are about restoring something that's been out of balance in the world, not everybody understands it. I know when I first started teaching, performing, back in my 20s, what I was sharing was quite radical back then. And not a lot of people really understood it. But as time progressed and the consciousness has grown, and we've started to see more and more the results of extreme consumption and this more masculine drive for more, we start to see that the reality is pretty tragic, because we see more and more of everything, more wars, um, more lies, more manipulations. And suddenly the consciousness has grown with certain things that have taken place. COVID's a wonderful example of how people almost got slapped, in the face and said, wake up. And I've really noticed the difference in the last, couple of years of the receptivity level of my audiences. So, for example, now in the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I've been giving meditation concerts. I have 6,000 people in those meditation concerts, because people are saying, I really want to experience the truth of my nature and more balance and more love, because nothing else is making sense.
Hmm. I was one of the few males at when Lilith Fair came to Phoenix, Arizona, where I was born and raised. One of the few men in
Right.
the audience, and it was spectacular. Of course, the one artist that I was introduced to that I really enjoy listening to her voice is Sarah McLachlan, and she's just got some amazing stuff. I did not know at the time that her husband, of course, was her drummer and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what her relationship is like now, and it doesn't really matter. All I know is that I have found these conversations to be not only enlightening for me, but I'm hoping enlightening for our listeners. As we continue talking with Peruquois, and we're talking with her about the music that she has created, and you folks are going to hear some of that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is just a great pleasure to have Peruquois with us here on the program. Originally from, am I correct, Australia, currently
Mhm.
speaking to us from Moscow. You have, as of our conversation here, am I correct? You have a North American tour that you're going to be embarking upon, or is that something that you have already embarked upon?
Well, actually, I went through a huge journey in my life in America, in North America. When I was 24, I married a Native American medicine man and lived in New Mexico in the high desert country for on and off for over 11 years. So I've had a very big romance with America in the past. And I had a big gap from America where I was touring a lot more in Europe, Australia, New Zealand. Um, and then I started dancing again with America, where I came to LA. I started to record with some great producers there. And but I haven't actually toured back in America again. So it's been a long time because my work has taken me through many of the Eastern European countries and the European countries over the last, say, 20 years. So it's kind of like I felt this deep call back into America. So no doubt in the future I will create some sort of touring in America, but currently nothing planned. I'm currently touring in Russia.
How is that? How is that experience for you, touring in
It
Russia?
is true. It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. The Russian soul is one of the brightest souls I've ever met on the planet. Generally, when I say soul, I mean the nature or the connection, the roots, of the people here are very deep.
Hmm.
So if you start to speak to them about consciousness or love, or they're very romantic people, and they really value this quality of masculine, feminine energy. It's very much a place where men are men and women are women. But there's this great thirst, I would say, for knowledge, both scientific knowledge, spiritual knowledge, esoteric knowledge. The roots never got cut in Russia. And that's what makes it a particularly inspiring place to be. For example, some of my soundtracks that people can access through my online courses have been tested in alternative science laboratories here in Siberia, having incredible results with the effect on the human body, on the heart, and cleaning the blood, doing all kinds of things to rebalance the body. And Russian scientists have this incredible capacity to research. They're really at the forefront of that. Another very interesting thing that I developed with my live concerts here was they had the first auric field scanners that can project onto a screen, right? So when I'm singing in my meditation concerts, I'm singing these very interesting, they're high and very deep overtones. Sometimes three voices are singing at one time. But at the same time, my auric field on a massive screen is being projected onto the screen. And so you can see the movement of the colors. And it's so
Hmm.
important for people to see how sound, color, and the cosmos work together.
The first time I was ever introduced to the auric field was through a process known back then as Carillion photography.
Yes, of
And my first
course.
wife actually had I think she may still have the photograph, I'm not sure, maybe I do, of her and this incredible halo around her and so forth. I don't think I've ever had that done for myself. I'm curious, because I want to get into some of this as well, about some of your own personal, shall we say, um, spiritual, or to put it in a context that people will understand, but for you, it's probably a normalcy. Your supernatural proclivities, shall we say? We've had psychics, intuitives, and so forth on this program, healers in this respect who use their intuition and all of those things. What about you? Do you? I mean, because obviously, I would think that the music that you create at each of these gatherings when you are with people, as opposed to, say, being in the studio, although that is a wonderful experience, I'm sure, but it's different. You're picking up on
Absolutely.
the energy from your, I'm going to call them participants in,
Or audience,
the
yes,
experience.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You definitely pick that up. Um, so what's your question?
The question is, let's say you perform the same song in 10 different concerts. It's obviously never the same all 10 times. There's a variation based upon the energies in the venue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so for me, I would say I have kind of two different areas. And this is often how I split my show, though I do different shows because sometimes I'll perform just with an orchestra and it's not about specifically meditation. But some shows I will do half the show where I'm just taking people in and in and in and in. And it's very like soundtracks and very deep flowing feminine music, you know. Sometimes it can sound a bit shamanic. Sometimes there's many frequencies that I work with because my journey has taken me all over the planet with music, jazz being my roots. Then I married the Native American medicine man. So I was trained, or let's say explored, because it was more about exploration than training for me. And my deepest exploration in opening this kind of healing voice was, first of all, my first experience was connecting with the earth spirit and this enormous love pouring through my body and taking me into the original source of vibration of the planet. And that was my first awakening when I was 23. And I understood that rather than just being an entertainer or a jazz singer, I understood that this enormous loving power that vibrates through all nature, all cities, all things, is extremely unconditional and has a healthy field, you know, that we talked about spiraling, cycling,
Mhm.
etc. And that's how it moves through nature. That's how it moves through the body. And when I had that realization, I was very alone. I was feeling very suicidal at the time, very disgruntled with being that kind of successful, young, sexy musician, you know, and I realized that I was not alone, that this planet was immensely abundant with the most healing frequencies. And all that I needed to do was to make myself available to listen and to transmit those vibrations. Now, that sounds like a simple thing, but it took me years, I would say, to truly transmit more and more of those healing frequencies. And that's the experience, I would say, that the participants have when they come into the space. They could come in feeling a bit stressed. They could come in feeling worried. Right now there's a war going on here, so there's been a lot of pain, you know, and fear when the audiences come into the concert hall. I'm very conscious of that, but at the same time, because of my connection to the source of love and to the source of my inner world, my inner cosmos, I'm able to transcend that and come into my big nature. So when I walk onto a stage, I don't empathize with my audience, because if I did, I would be a mess. You
Mm.
know,
Right.
what I do is come into my bigger nature, and rather than feel, you know, big empathy for their pain, for their stress, for their fear, I will bring them into this big, wholesome, healthy, vibrational field. That's the way that I work. So I start spinning with the voice, the energy of the room. Different songs that I've composed work in different ways to activate different centers, different emotional centers, different triggers in the body, restoration. Like sometimes the feet will start vibrating, or a woman's womb will start vibrating, or the heart will start opening and people start to cry, you know, or laugh. We use a lot of laughter in our concerts as well. And then once I've really brought this energy up in the body, then I consider that people are ready to go into a state of meditation, so that they have gone through enough of the integration of all they carry inside of themselves. So they're ready to, okay, this is where the voice for me is very much tuning with the room. And as you say, it'll be different each time. So the overtones will suddenly work a bit differently. They'll start shaking here, or suddenly I'll be dropping into a very deep frequency to shake something through the room. I'm not using logic for this. I'm using something that is deeper than logic. It's the attunement to the field of life, or the flow of life, and that's running through my body. So naturally that transmits to the audience, and they normally just fall inside to a very deep state of beauty and peace. Of course, I do that live, but I also have the capacity to do that, as you mentioned earlier, through the studio recordings. And so this is what makes it very accessible to the American audience, is that they can go to my website and they can see I have about 15 different courses on there, all of which have different soundtracks attuned to them, different practices for different human conditions. Like, for example, I made one course for men and for women when COVID came, and it was a response to the fact that people were deeply stressed, fearful, anxious. I went in and gave them a practice, just 10 minutes, to activate the will center, to activate the voice, to get the breath rooted right down into the, pelvic floor root. And then once they're in the body, then I start to sing in these very high overtones to retune the whole magnetic field of the body. So they start to feel like, okay, this is me, I'm back, I'm out of that crazy fast vibrating frequencies that, are pumping through the mental field of people, the internet, etc. That's an example of one course I have. That actually a free course. I kept it there because hundreds of thousands of people were using it, and I don't think that, I don't know how it is in America, but certainly, over on European, Russian side, the world hasn't really settled down since then. It's just another wave of deep fear, stress, now economic collapse, now resource collapse, lack of gas, etc., happening over in Europe and Russia, war, etc. So it's, what I recognize is that with the voice in the participant, they need to activate their own voice, because the voice is the vibration of the body that is the bridge between the soul and the body. When somebody is in, say, a panic attack or deep fear, there's enormous contraction in the body. And often the consciousness leaves the body. So they're kind of like above themselves and very tight or very small inside. So the voice becomes instrumental. The voice, which is rooted in deep belly breath, is the key to, to bring back the connectivity of the body and to switch on that will center, which I'm finding globally is getting very, very low in people as they focus more on the outer world than the inner world, which, as you know, is filled up with so much negativity, that when they come back in to feel the will center, the heart gets softer, that deep belly breath, and the sound of their voice becomes an anchor to release the stress in the body And then I work with the soundtrack over the top to balance all of that. So, you know, I can work with women in any condition, from rape to opening up sexuality, to helping her deal with guilt, to being able to deal with grief, or somebody that she's lost through death or childbirth or whatever it is. But there's a whole array of courses that people can go in and even listen to the first couple of classes to see, is this what I'm looking for to help me, you know.
Mm. We are talking with Peruquois, and she is joining us all the way from Moscow in Russia. And I want to give you folks the website. The website, actually, it's a very simple website. We hope that you will go to that website and find out more about Peruquois. It is Peruquois.com, which is her name, Peruquois.com. We will be linked to your website as well, so that folks can find out more about you, listen to your music, watch some of your videos, and just continue their journey, male or female, doesn't make any difference. We hope that you will do that as we continue talking with Peruquois here on Tell Me Your Story.
Surrender, a pain.
I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is a distinct pleasure, an honor to have Peruquois on our program here to discuss this whole conversation, which, of course, we will only. It's like an iceberg. We're only going to have 5% above the water, and there's another 95%, however the mathematics is, below the water line. There's always more to talk about. You were talking about, of course, your experiences as you perform in front of a group of men and women. Probably, I would venture, probably mostly women. But
How did you
what's that?
guess?
What's that now?
I said, how did you guess?
Yes, exactly.
How did you guess?
But I would venture you have a what they would refer to as a playlist
Yes.
going in, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what will have been performed and presented by the end of the performance or concert or however you want to the event, if you will. Am I correct in that? Because you are going to be using something we have been encouraging people since September 2019. We've been promoting. First, it was the year of perfect vision, 2020. When we got to the end of the year 2020, we said we are now going to go into the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, where we ask people to go within and listen to that still small voice, sit quietly in that calm, peaceful, quiet place, to rejuvenate, to get inspiration, to get encouragement, to get information, education, whatever it is that they might need. But the only place they can get it, and this kind of goes to when I was looking for some place on the planet I could go to, I could get away to, nobody else could find it, and I could just go there and just, you know, just be quiet and just listen to the earth and what have you. And I realized that there is no place on the planet I can go where nobody else will bother me. Because if I can find it, then they can. And then it dawned on me, oh, wait a minute. There is one place that I can go where nobody else can go.
Right.
And that's inside.
Absolutely.
And that's what you use in the process of the work that you do, the healing work, especially that you do, because unlike Western medicine here in the States, one size does not fit all. Talk to us about your experiences. And oh, by the way, I'm just guessing here, that where you are today is not so much a product of your education as it is from your life experience.
Absolutely.
So go ahead and share with us a bit about the importance, the vital importance, if you will, of our intuition.
Absolutely. You know, one of the most important things to recognize about intuition is that it is totally from within the body. There's this flow between the soul, that bigger consciousness, and the body. And there's certain sensations that the soul sends when it's sending you a signal, because it doesn't have a human voice, you know. And that is goosebumps, tears, flooding in the heart, you know, or just certain things that come into your pathway, certain things people say to you, and you go, oh my God, that was a feeling I had, you know. And the soul is constantly trying to communicate in that intuitive way. And I would say that intuition and the anchors, or the place where we have this immense sensitivity, is the heart, because the heart is the most magnetic electromagnetic field, or tangible, in the body. And so I know in my work it was a lot about learning how to open up the electromagnetic field of the heart, which comes from deep sensitivity, feminine energy, which comes from deep love. And love has been the immensely powerful guide in my life, which has been so difficult because when love asks you to move in a particular way, it often goes against what people say is safe, correct, predictable. So when I was 24 and I met this medicine man, he said to me, and after he heard me sing, he said, I've been waiting for you. And the great mother said you would come to me, and we have many roads to travel and many people to meet. He also said, by the way, you assigned to be one of my wives. And by the way, I'll also have 6 others. So there'll be 7 of you. And by the way, I already have 3 of them in New Mexico. So this is one of those classic stories where intuition is begging me to follow this pathway that this man has touched in me. As soon as I hear his voice, as soon as I see him, there's some kind of flooding, like tears and goosebumps, and knowing that I've always known somehow this man. But at the same time, everything in my life that I've crafted, which is my music career, I live a great life in Australia, I have a band, musicians, etc., I have to step away from, to step into the unknown, to follow and be with this man. And what is the key factor here is love. I could not deny that there was this enormous love flooding my body whenever I was in his presence. But it was so dangerous because it demanded that I give up everything that was safe for me. And now I'm not saying love always does that. Sometimes it does, though, and everybody's saying to you, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, but there's something inside of you that says you have to do it. Even if you fall on your face, you have to do it. You have to follow that thing. Well, that's what I did. I went to the desert, New Mexico. I sold my car. I let my musicians go, and I never went back to my old life. But what grew out of that kind of calling and following love was a new woman. And suddenly love became the biggest guide in my life, which meant all the unlove, all of the bad relationships I'd have, all the ego that I had developed as a young musician, all of that had to slowly fall away. And the guide for me was this constant connection I had with the earth. So whilst I was like struggling as these layers of my onion of ego had slowly been kind of stripped off for me, my anchor was the earth. I would go out, I would walk in the high desert forest, every day, and I would sit, I would listen, and I would sing, and just let these sounds, kind of come through my body. And this is what truly anchored that intuition, because it was undeniable what was coming through my body. And I follow that when I'm composing now, always actually. If a song is in creative process, it always floods my body. So if it's a particular focus, it'll flood that organ. For example, if it's a song about the heart, if it's a song about the womb for women, it will flood that organ. And so the body, I find, speaks very, very clearly from the source when we grow that sensitivity. And so for me, meditation, I was following that pathway from 1985 when I was 15, but my early meditation practices were much more Buddhist, because that's all I had access to, and which I'm grateful for too, from the likes of books like Lobsang Rampa and the likes. And then eventually, as I continued on my journey through walking with the earth, through ceremony, from being with this man, from being with all these women that challenged me like to no end, I started to wake up more and more and more, this direct communion. And sitting in this silence was not enough for me. I realized that as a woman, there's so much emotional charge in us. We have a lot of emotional charge. And that emotional charge is fueled by that cyclical hormonal system, you know. And so I realized that unless I let that charge through the voice, and I explored this whole world of intuitive sound, of what the sound of the heart, you know, the sound of the womb, you know, ooh, these deep body sounds, primal sounds, the body started to balance itself. And then I found that more silence was there, so I could fall inside and be able to hear and feel the space, that very liquid fluidity. You said to me at the beginning, Richard, that you're a very fluid man, you know, this fluid energy that rises through the feminine energy in the body. And it's very pleasurable, which is very unlike those original Buddhist meditations that I was, you know, opening into in the early stage of my life. I realized that feminine energy wants to flow through a woman's body. She wants to flow through her vagina, through her yoni, through her womb, through her heart, through her breast, through her throat, through her eyes, you know. And that this energy in and of itself is a fluid, liquid, very sensual and healing energy. And this is the great secret to youth. This is the great secret to eternity, or the eternal youth. Not that the body doesn't age, but the youth elixir that flows from this source through a woman's body. And of course, it can flow through a man's body as well if he learns how to master it, you know. This is what keeps us young. So I would say at 52, I'm probably younger than what I was, say, when I was 40, you know, because my practice has gotten deeper. And of course, that is what I've continued to share through the courses with women.
Peruquois is my guest here on the program, and you are listening to Tell Me Your Story.
Holy original woman, she, with the sun and the earth in her body, lover of man and creation, she, keeper of the way, priestess of power, she, wise and knowledgeable. Here begins the hierarchy, the beginning of the fall. Then came the age when the gods from the sky to earth came to her, found her beautiful, and tempted her away, offering her the blade of power, cutting her from the roots of truth, tempting her with jewels of knowledge, lifting her up to be a goddess high in the temple, using the power given to her for herself, using the power to play games with the gods, tipping the balance of the world. Shame on her, shame on her. shayu na shi ya shi shayu na shi ya shi shayu na shi shi ya shi shayu na shi ya shi shayu na shi ya shi shayu na shi Holy original woman, she with the sun and the earth in her body, lover of man and creation, she keeper of the way. Then came the age when the tyrants of the God force raged. Danger fell on her, taking the voice of the mother away, silencing her with the blade of power, cutting her from the roots of truth, shaming her, closing her sensual body, birthing a world of pain. Using the power to put asleep the wisdom of her, using the power to slave her to the life of the mind, tipping the balance of the world. Shame on him. I know, sacrifice for the truth, she dies, compromise herself to live and hide. The source of her love never died. She follows him into the mind. Sacrifice for the truth, she dies, compromise herself to live and hide. The source of her love never died, so she followed him into the mind.
I'm Richard Dugan, and I thank you folks for joining us and staying with us throughout this program. We've got so much more yet to talk with her about. Peruquois is my guest, and peruquois.com is our guest's website. We'll be linked to it so that you folks can find out more about the work that she is doing, and you are hearing some of the music that she has created. And we are so grateful to have her all the way from Moscow, Russia, talking to us. I guess we could say halfway around the world, and it's really nice to be talking with you. A woman who also originally is from down under, Australia. Although you sound a little more British than you do Australian, but I can hear the Australian cracking through every once in a while in your accent. You are wearing, for those who are watching the YouTube video, those who are listening to the program on the podcast or broadcast, cannot see that she's wearing a rather, I don't want to say it's a vibrant purple, if I'm correct, if it is purple.
You can say that.
But it is definitely It's a calming. It's kind of like the fragrance of lavender if you were, had that aroma in the room, that kind of thing. And it turns out that I have a good friend who is a psychic who does see auras and aura colors, and she has a book on those and has basically seen that I, along with others of my kind, shall we say, have both yellow and violet in our auras, and violet is part of that flow, whereas the yellow is a little more, I guess, practical. And yeah, I have my practical side, but I also like to have fun. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the evolution or the transformational aspects of relationships. Here we are in the 21st century. Now,
Yeah.
when I would introduce my first wife or my present wife, and right now it gives me a great deal of pain to have to say that it's my wife because she doesn't belong to me. She's not my possession. So when I hear that phrase, or I even use it, it's like, no, wait a minute. How do I rephrase this? Because she's a free moral agent. She can stay, she can go, she can do what she wants, as can I. What about that whole aspect? Because obviously what I am saying right now to those who are of a, shall we say, a more fundamental philosophical bent would say that I am destroying the underpinnings of the American family, of the way that things are supposed to be according to this particular book or that particular book. But we don't belong to anybody. I don't have a, and the same thing goes with the land. There's a great line in an Irish song that says, "You do not own the land owns you." And I bet you real farmers probably would agree with that phrase. Yeah, the land owns them. So talk to us, because you are one of, I don't know if there are all 7 quote unquote wives with you and the medicine man, but that is a whole different, even foreign, and even to some, again, of these fundamental philosophical bents, totally abhorrent. It's wrong. It's against the laws of God and nature and blah, 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 blah. But to me, it seems as though there is an evolution that has been taking place probably most profoundly beginning, let's say in the 1960s here in the United States with the free love movement, if you will, where today I'm in a place where I remember the passing of my sister in March of 2022, my eldest sister. And the only reaction of tears and crying that I had was at the memorial, because my perspective is we're all going to go through this. My father does not like it when I call him a wise man, but he said to me, says, "Eat, drink, and be merry in moderation, because nobody gets out of this world alive." Well, that's just part of the process. And so I knew my sister was just out of her body now. So relationships, they evolve, and philosophies, they evolve.
Absolutely.
Talk to us, if you will, from your perspective in the music that you create.
I have a very interesting perspective on relationship because of the depth that I've gone into love. And love has always asked everything of me, everything. And the first big love was the medicine man. I was together with him for 11 years and those 7 wives. I'm not anymore. So please understand that was now, I don't know, maybe 15 or 17 years ago. And that was an extremely unique relationship. I wouldn't say that is a model for the world at all. It was just specifically a vision that he was given. He was at the stage in his life where he was 50, he had a cancer, he had been a special forces Vietnam soldier, and he had come through so much in his life that he either died or he said to life, to the spirit, to the source of life, what can I do? What am I here for? And so he went and cried for a vision on the mountain, fasted for 4 days, which is very, as you know, in the Native American way, that is this ceremony called vision questing, where you go and ask the source, what am I here really to do? How can I really help life and the world to balance? And in that vision, he was given a vision of, he would be given 7 wives, they would be signed, they would know who they are, and he was to help wake up their gifts, you know, and to help them to be really the women of love and power that they could be. So I was one of those women. That was an immensely challenging relationship, because it blew open what most people only cross minimally in their life, and that is a little bit of jealousy, a little bit of betrayal, you know, and all of those kind of things that are extremely painful and often block the consciousness in people for years, you know, as they transform the pain of that. I had to deal with that daily. Imagine, daily. Just consciously, lovingly, openly. And of course I kept it my secret until I exploded for after a week or a month, and then out it would all come, and then I would try and keep more secrets about my jealousy or whatever, and then it would explode until eventually we found a balance between us of how to truly love and support each other, you know, as those almost like planets around the central sun. But that's a rare experience, extremely rare. And I would say there's very few men that could hold a kind of balance, because every man knows how difficult it is to be with one woman, because she's so changing, she's so unpredictable, she's Pandora's box, she's got so much beauty and chaos going on, he can't predict what she is or isn't in the next moment, you know. Imagine having 7 of those. So I would say that it was not an easy journey for him, and it definitely annihilated him as a man, but made him, I think, a better man. But then the next great love that came into my life, now this gets even better, the story gets even better. He was a Tantra man. He was a realized, was awakened Tantra man. And he too had several partners. And this was just like, no, not again, you know, as if I haven't like burnt through the pain, you know, of many women around one man. I'm going to go through it again. But love demanded it of me, really, truly. And this man took me to another level of, let's say, awakening, when my Kundalini fully woke up. And I became very, very bright through this love. Now in the last 11 years, I've been married to my husband. He's a Russian man. And it's very much a monogamous relationship. And when I called for this love, and you have to understand, every single time I consciously called for that man and consciously called for a certain quality of love. The last time I called for a man where he could be my balance, he could be my co-creator in life. And this is where we get to your question about my husband or my wife, you know, and this idea that we are autonomous, etc. Well, it's very interesting, because this is how I found it as a woman. I certainly had the experience of what it was to be loved totally to the source of my being, to be supported, but at the same time, to not truly be wife. And what I found I longed for was a man to call me his wife. And that there's a very special anchor in a woman's body when a man calls to his woman, my wife. It is something ancient. It is something sacred. And it's something that goes beyond the logic. But it is not coated in as you're my possession. And I think that's what you're in yourself trying to find. Where's the balance here? Because when you truly love your partner's essence and you want to see them really embody that, like be the most beautiful they can, to be the most, really live what they're here to live for, and to support them through that. This is really loving the essence. And at the same time, as a husband, you stand for when she's not being herself, when she's doubting herself, when she's being aggressive, when she's manipulating, when she's doing something that's out of alignment with her nature. I think that man as husband says, my love, you're not being yourself, hey, you don't need to go down that track. I'm here with you, or likewise, she may be able to play the same role with her man, because as women, we definitely see our man. That's what we fall in love with. We fall in love with his potential. We see it. And we are like, because we are the feminine grounded principle that, is all about the body and the physical, we want to help ground that energy in our man so that he is following his purpose. And when he's not, and he's lost, and he's doubting himself, it's also our role to support him and say, my love, you're amazing. I know it's hard right now, or something doesn't make sense, or don't doubt yourself. This is where we find a balance between you loving the essence of your partner, but at the same time, you stand underneath them with this sense of my. The my is that I stand with you through time and space, through the experience of life together.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very special marriage, because it's a conscious marriage then. You know why you're together. You know what you love about each other. You know what really irritates you about your partner. And you also know, if you don't know it, but you're growing with it, to how to be more clear, how to be more honest, how to truly hold a space that nourishes, directs, sometimes it's blunt, but its essence is, I want to see you be all that you can be. And to me, that is the point of man and woman being husband and wife. In a way, you complete each other. The weaknesses, or that maybe she has, are sometimes your strengths, and sometimes the strengths she has are your weaknesses. And that's what makes for a very powerful and loving and growing union.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I was saddened by the fact that my first marriage ended in a divorce. I didn't want it to, but I just could not continue in the relationship the way that it was, because it was what I wanted. It wasn't what, as I put it, it wasn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And here I am in my second relationship, my second marriage. And we have co-created, we've created things, incredible things over the years. We've been together. As a matter of fact, we're coming up on our 20th anniversary, which I never thought I would get to, because I was married in the first marriage. I was married for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I was not wanting that one to come to an end, because my parents, who just celebrated their 65th anniversary back in June of 2022, I was in the logical mind, I love milestones, okay? And I'm going to beat them. I mean, I'll never catch them as long as they live, but I want to take a shot at going 40, 50, 60, 70. And when I lost the first relationship, the first marriage, I'm going, oh no, now I got to start all over again? I'm not getting any better.
I think it's very beautiful, because this is certainly what I've witnessed, because again, I work with so many women, and if you know anything about women, the constant source of discussion is love and relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And what I see on the planet growing more and more is that when couples come together and they're younger, they're often not really ready for love. They come together with an idea that they love, or that they want to love, or they want to grow into, but they're just not there yet. So they need to go through this experiences, challenges, their awfulness, their conditioning, but they don't yet have the tools, the resources, and often the original alignment between him and her was not quite there, and there's a perfection in it because you hope to grow each other painfully, awfully, but if you stay very conscious in that divorce process, whether it's an actual divorce or just that you separated because you weren't married in the first place, but if you stay very conscious in that separation process, you start to very clearly see, okay, this is my conditioning and this is how I played it, and this is his conditioning and this is how he played it. I created an entire course, which is about 60 lessons, called Letting Go of Past Love, which consciously navigates a woman through from before she met him to after she leaves him, and transforming all the experience of that, because we make promises to each other, vows to each other, they need to be dissolved. We often have these feelings of righteousness, anger, disappointment, they need to be met and loved through. We sometimes have betrayals that need to be met and dissolved inside, so that if we don't do this kind of inner work, it's almost guaranteed that the next man or woman who comes along will mirror that which didn't get faced. It's like the karmic effect, of the energy's locked there. So it's going to attract more of itself until it's fluid. When it becomes fluid, it's no longer like drawing more of itself so for example, if you got betrayed by your husband or your wife, and you didn't deal with it and you're still pissed about it, but you really, really want to be trusting again, but you don't deal with the pain of that, it's almost guaranteed the next person is going to do that to you. So for me, it's fundamental that we consciously move out of that relationship, find the point of love that was the original seed that brought you together, find that, say thank you for that. That will never go away. And transform all the unlove so that we can actually be open-hearted again, radiant, and ready for a higher, let's call it vibration, or somebody that reflects what you've integrated in your humanness, which hopefully is more love. And that's the cycle of growing love on the planet through experience. So, like you said, it was like your conditioning said, oh, I've screwed it up because my parents didn't screw it up. I shouldn't have screwed it up. But the truth is, you had to go through that to bring in a deeper love into your life that now you co-create with.
Well, there's a beautiful line from a song by the songwriter who since passed, John Prine, sung by also another artist who has since passed, John Denver, called Berkeley Woman. And in that song, near the end, there's a line that says, I love her enough to let her go.
Yes.
And that is kind of where I am coming from in terms of my looking for that aspect of balance. Do I want her to go? No, I don't, because overall, we have a good time together. My parents, of course, 65 years married. My two older sisters, my eldest sister, of course, was married until she passed. My second oldest sister is still married to the first man she has been married to, has two children and so forth. My two younger sisters, also still married to the first man they married, and it looks like that they will carry that forward to whatever conclusion that is, hopefully, until death do us part, as they say. Whereas my brother and I have traveled down, at least I once, down that divorce line, that line of divorce, at least once. In his case, I think he just completed number 2. And I said after my first one, I said I would never, ever do that again. That in the relationship that I'm currently in, that we're celebrating our 20th in December, I said at the beginning, I said, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to do everything in my power to make this work. Now, that doesn't mean that I would stay or ask her to stay in an abusive situation that was not
Of course. Of
was
course.
not thriving.
That exactly. And that creates, obviously the pain of that separation created enough foundation to know what you value. And that's what I call maturing of love. When you know what you value in life. Because when you know what you value, in relationship, you always have that moment where you can choose the drama or you can choose to listen. When you know the value of love, you say, if I follow the drama, this is going to get more painful and neither of us are going to be happy. Or I can be honest about how I feel and then totally listen to myself, to my partner. And that's the maturity of love, I think, that you speak about, where you say, I'm going to do everything that it takes to really be true, to be honest, to be clear to this love. I had a great lesson in my childhood. My father actually was a fisherman, and he lived in a fishing village in the southeast of the country, very rugged South Pole waters. And my mother and him fell in love. She was from the city, and he claimed her, took her down to the countryside. She was totally out of her depth, had 4 children with her. But obviously something in his youth or his immaturity in love, he was drinking when he came off the fishing trips, and he became a bit negligent, I would say, potentially in his taking care of life. And he took a fishing boat out. It was like what he said, let's just do one more trip for the season, This fishing boat needed to go up, what they call going up on the slip, where they clean out the boat and make sure it's seaworthy and everything. You have to do it once a year. And he said, I can take it out one more time. Well, he took it out one more time and he never came back, and his crew never came back, and they didn't find the boat. And so my mother was left with 4 children. And it was such a reminder to me through my entire life, where my original father presence was taken from me because he didn't take care of that love, of those details of life. And it really taught me, be totally here, listen, be present, because you may not get it tomorrow.
Right.
You may not get a tomorrow. And this is where love becomes very alive. This is why people often travel, for example, because suddenly they forget all their conditioning. They're very alert to the moment, and suddenly life becomes very alive. Well, when you live in your relationship with this kind of value system of, I want to be in this love, I want to give to this love, I want to listen to this love, the love becomes much more intelligent, more conscious, more guiding you both from within. So that was a lesson I got from my father. Don't be lazy with life, with love.
Well, one of the philosophies that I have lived by, and I've shared this with everybody that I've worked with, as well as in other areas of my life, and that is, it is the details that will make you or break you.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
it's very important to take care of those little things. But I wanted to ask you one more quick question here before we wrap things up here, and that has to do with this aspect of love. And when you describe it, it is not, this is actually a question, it is not, we're not talking about an emotion, okay? And we're also not talking about necessarily a logic, brain power per se. There's a third element there that is love. Am I correct in that?
Definitely. I would definitely look into that inquiry with you, because I hear you're looking into it. And we often consider that love is something that happens with another, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what we haven't been taught is that there is an innate, natural flow of love that rises through our body, that creates this sense of goodness, this sense of wholesomeness, this sense of health, this sense of like brightness. And you see that flow of love in children. It's so obvious, right? When they're little, it's just like you want to even look, you can't stop watching them because they're that flow of love, because it's coming up from through the entire body. And this I would say is like an eternal flow of love. It's like a wellspring that moves through the body, up from the earth, down through the soul field, you know, and it's quite impersonal, actually. This energy is quite impersonal. It's a flow.
Yeah.
It's intelligent flow. It's creative flow. It's very pro-life. It wants to make things, you know, good things, you know, and it wants to give and share. And this is the natural state of the planet, you know, that mother planet, how the way I spoke about her in the beginning, you know, that realization that I had, she just gives this flow to life, and it's impersonal. And what's miraculous about the human condition is that we get to experience this impersonal flow personally. So we get to have it as an experience of, this is my body, you know, and to love it. And you have to be personal with your body. You have to dress it a certain way and, you know, take care of it in a certain way and love it. But the source of the love is impersonal coming through. And it's the same when you love a person, you know, like when you have a partner, I mean, you can say, oh, I love everybody. But the truth is that's bullshit. Nobody loves everybody. But people can touch this very impersonal flow of love. But then there's this other level of humanness. You meet somebody who becomes your partner, and there is this flow of love that goes, and you just see the essence. The essence is impersonal. At the same time, it's personal. It's the way she moves. It's the shape of her body. It's what she loves. It's the way it's the million different things that make her personally her. And at the same time, it's deeply impersonal because you love something that moves through her. And when it moves through her, you go, wow, that's my woman, you know? But there's something more in her that I see, and I'm touched by it. And I will always want to give to that. So it's this flow between eternal or impersonal love and through the human flavor, you know, of what makes us uniquely ourselves.
Yeah. Peruquois is my guest here on the program, and I'm absolutely blown away by our conversation here on the program today. And you, by the way, are listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story.
Oh, Mother, Great Mother, we are your children. us to heal ourselves and one another. Mother, great mother, beat the rhythm of the world in our hearts. Oh mother, great mother, open our ears to hear your voice. Oh mother, great mother, lift the veil of the fear of darkness. Oh mother, great mother, birth our children wholesome and unified. Mother, great mother, we are the instruments of your love. Oh mother, great mother, restore the earth as in heaven above.
I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we're talking with Peruquois, and I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity. I hope that we can have you back to continue this conversation, because not only is it fascinating to me, I think that it's vitally important. I'm going to throw this out to you to see what you think. You're familiar with, I don't know, you probably watch very little, if any, television or what have you, but I'm sure you're probably familiar with a program called, or even the book, I guess it was based on a book called The Handmaid's Tale. Does that ring a bell at all?
Mm-mm.
Well, it has to do with the fact that the women in that time period, which supposedly is in the future, basically they are now being told and controlled by the men, the patriarchy, because there's been this virus or something, and that apparently the women in the general population can't have babies. So they find women who are still fertile and having children, and they collect them into this compound, this city, what have you. And basically, the patriarchy, is telling them, this is what you're going to do. This is the way it's going to be, you know? And I feel a little bit like that's kind of what's starting to go on here in the United States. A little bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that it probably won't last, because the feminine energy here in the United States, as well as, if you want to say it, make it more personal, the female energies won't allow it. Because we have too many who are very strong,
Yeah.
very intelligent, very powerful in their own right, okay? and they will not stand for it, and they will do whatever I suppose it will take to, preferably non-violently, to say, no, this is not your right.
No.
As a male, I can do whatever I want with my body. I can tattoo it, I can pierce it, da 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 da.
Mhm.
But a woman, there's certain things that you cannot do because this book or this philosophy or says no, you can't do that. And I sit here and I go, you know what? An individual who chooses to do with their body what they wish will be responsible for the intended as well as the unintended consequences, as the phrase might go.
Yeah.
And that to me is the best, most positive way to put it. That and this is, I worked for 15 years for a Christian station back in the 80s, early 90s during the height of the televangelist soiree here in the United States. It was horrific. I have to tell you from my perspective. And it was their way or the highway. And I thought, wait a minute. The church is for the sinner, not for the saints. That's where the sinners are supposed to go. And yet there were churches that would not allow people of other lifestyles, if you will, or mindsets. They wouldn't allow them in. No, you can't. We don't allow your people. We don't allow your kind. And it's like, wait a minute. We're all here together. We're all here together. I mean, the good Lord could have put us all on separate planets, because I know there are probably enough M-class planets livable. We could each have our own. You'd have your own. I'd have my own. Be a wonderful thing, but we'd be awfully lonely.
Absolutely.
What's the reality? We're here together. And so I have to wonder if you see this concept of community is beginning to rise up and say, no, stop separating us, stop dividing us, stop trying to create division. I mean, from my perspective, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work.
Absolutely.
You see that as you travel around the world, that like in the Arab countries, I can't remember, I mean, Saudi Arabia, I guess, the women, they say enough is enough.
Mhm.
You know, if you want, as a woman in the Muslim faith, if you want to wear the burqa or you want to wear whatever it is, that the head covering and what have you, you're free to do so. But I want the freedom to not have to, or et cetera, et cetera. Do you see that is a prevailing movement, if you will, across the planet? And it's not just the
Yeah,
female energy, but the feminine.
Yeah, definitely. I see that energy rising. It's interesting because, as you say, in America, you definitely see this kind of pressure, this pressing down on the feminine energy. And it's almost shocking because there is such a rise of feminine energy globally and, of course, in America. But at the same time, as you say, there's so much division going on that everyone's starting to get a bit confused, about what is the truth, like what is feminine energy, what is masculine energy, and who am I, and with this pressing down of laws, you can't abort your child, and all of this is eventually the lid has to come off on that, because I definitely see that woman has the right to decide whether she births or not births, because ultimately she's going to be the one that carries life of that child through its lifetime. So for me, that's kind of the fundamental,
Right.
And I think that we're going to see more and more of women fighting back. And I really think it's so important in America for that rising to actually happen. As you say, not violently, but just enough, just enough.
Right. Peruquois is my guest, and we have come to the end of this conversation. I hope we can do this again, maybe when you're in another far-off place, or maybe in the States. I do have 3 final questions. And as we have entered the 15th year of this program, I I have a new set of questions that I'm now asking my guests. But before I do that, I want to let you know that you are listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And you can listen to this program live streamed at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. on Sundays, 1 a.m. on Mondays, or you can also listen to our special Wednesday edition at 9 a.m., all Pacific time, at richarddugan.com with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. And as I said before, we're on YouTube, where you can watch these interviews. You can see the beautiful Peruquois and listen to the music that we are going to be providing throughout this program. So I hope you will do that. Also, spend time listening to that still small voice and going within during the decade of perfect vision. And if you'd like to support the work we're doing, we have a PayPal account. It's there for your security as well as ours. Support us in whatever way you can. We will take energetic support as well. We're not picky. Yeah, we do need dollars and cents, but you know what? Sometimes the energetic is just as good. With all of that said, my final 3 questions for you, and again, I thank you for giving us so much time here on the program. The first of those questions is, who is Peruquois?
You know, I feel as I mature, I've become myself. That's fundamentally it, without too many labels or too much trying to be anything. I just find that I find this flow of love that just allows me just to be myself.
What is your life's purpose?
I feel that my life purpose is very much to serve the vibration of love. That's really what I'm here to do. That's what my voice is for, my music, my courses. Everything that I create is here to really support and nourish this vibration of love so that we don't doubt it, forget it, or just keep growing it up in ourselves. That's my purpose.
And finally, what was your best day?
Oof. God, so every day is a great day. Let me think about that. I don't think I can actually say what was my best day, because there's a million of them. I think there's more of a best experience. And I think my best experience, I would say, was when I got accepted into the Conservatorium of Music with no previous training or very little previous training. It was a miracle. It was a total miracle because my soul called for it and I worked for it. And this was one of the deepest anchors that put me on the singing path. When that day happened and I got that letter from the Conservatorium, we've accepted you as one of the 2 singers of the course. That was when I was now anchored and on the path.
Peruquois, I thank you once again for joining us here on the program. It's been a great pleasure, and I look forward to having you back again in the not-too-distant future.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's really, really inspiring to meet a very inquiring, loving man who is really standing for people, even though you're recognizing that feminine energy has to be rebalanced on this crazy, beautiful planet. It's a great pleasure to meet.
Well, thank you again. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal and Jeanette, I am listening.